Welcome back. So we continue to get reaction to news coming out of Limpopo ANC. Of course, the latest being Stanley Matabata stepping down as a chairperson of the party in the province, and Mamabolo leaving the ANC after 30 years within the organization. We get some analysis now by political analyst Mr. Elvis Masoga. Mr. Masoga, good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us. So a lot to talk about. I think let's start off with Matabata. Firstly, before we get into Mamabolo, this is going to be quite the activity that we're seeing, because he now has been summoned to Luthuli House to explain to the SG why also the public stepping down as chairperson of the party. What do you make of this? Is this going to hurt the ANC in Limpopo?
Yeah, no, once again, my humble best to you, Naledi, and all the viewers of Newzroom Afrika. Thanks very much. I think it was not necessarily unexpected, because when you speak of Matabata, we are referring to, a political cadre within the ANC who presided over the ANC and the Limpopo provincial government for more than 10 years. You remember when he was roped in as sort of a caretaker premier in 2013, when the then premier of Limpopo, Stan Mathabatha, was dismissed by the ANC. He served, I think, 8 or 9 months as the premier before they head for the 2014 general elections. And it's something that most of us, we may not be aware. Since 1994 democratic trajectory, he's the only premier in the history of our democracy to serve more than 2 full terms of office as premier. Remember, he served 2 full terms plus, I think, 8 or 9 months. So there's no any other, comparable premier who has been able to achieve such milestone. But again, even in terms of the magnitude and quality of his achievements as premier, and again, even as the provincial chairperson, he has created a particular phenomenal public brand whereby they don't associate him with any allegation of corruption within the Limpopo cycle. And I think he wanted, I suspect, he could have realized that, the magnitude and the quality of my achievements and milestones will necessitate for me to step down at a time when, public approval ratings around you as Matabata are still very high. Sun Tzu in The Art of War teaches humanity that a great military general is the one, who decides, to salute and say farewell to his people at a time when they still, revere in your achievements and accomplishments. And I think, I suspect, given, his achievements as a Limpopo premier, he could have said, my reputation, my achievements and credibility must come before what I'm going through now. I think, I suspect that, yes, he may sound in public to say it has got to do with some factional dynamics within ANC in terms of the regional elective conferences, but I suspect deep within his political psychology, he could have realized that as a premier, as a provincial chairperson who has achieved so much for the ANC in Limpopo, let me step down at a time when the public, approval ratings are still very, very high for him. Like what Mandela did. You remember at the ANC 1997 conference, yes, they tried, the delegates, to force Mandela to continue as ANC president, but he said, no. It's great to stop at a time when people are still expecting. So that's my thinking in terms of his political psychology.
All right, I want to look at other issues, because this is what he's done in this letter that he's written. And it reads, in order to uphold my reputation and integrity, I cannot stand aloof to such unethical and un-ANC tendencies occurring under my leadership. At the same time, though, as we're looking at what's happening with Stanley Matabata, chairperson of the party in the province, then you have former ANC MP, Mamabolo, and I'm sure you were able to listen to our conversation with him just moments ago, saying he's also resigning from the ANC after being within the structures of the ANC since he was 13 years old, starting at COSAS, and says that he is, so angry that he's going to now start his own political party. Just really frustrated, he says, talks about feeling betrayed by the party and being pushed out of parliament as a result of being accused of not having a matric certificate. Is there something to be looked at there in what's happening? And is there a link between the two? He speaks about being in support of Matabata's stepping down as well.
You know, Naledi, I think when you delve deeper into the underlying, dynamics, especially within the matter, you realize, particularly maybe let's pay reference to Chupu Matabata's resignation letter. You delve into the underlying implications. You will realize that, the reference to, some unethical behavior within some elective regional conferences, to me, I think it is just, a passing duck and dive smoke screen. It covers, it's like a blanket that covers, something inside. The reality is that it's all about, consideration of his previous achievements as premier and even as the provincial chairperson of the ANC. You remember, ANC just emerged from a very, politically precarious, 2024 general election. They've lost, political ground so much, but in Limpopo, Chupu Matabata, as the provincial chairperson, was able to lead them so phenomenally. It accomplished more than 70% of the provincial vote. But when you compare to other provinces, it was a disaster for the ANC. And I think, like I'm saying, I suspect citing unethical conduct within some regional conferences, to me, it's just like, like a ghostly duck and dive smoke screen. But the reality is that he's trying to salvage the purity of his achievements, as Limpopo premier and again as the provincial chairperson.
Yeah, but I just want to go back to Mamabolo because he too leaving now, resigning actually from the party. I just want to get your commentary on him. He says he's starting a party. It was meant to be Mandela for president. Now it's Born to Win. And he says he's got 10,000 signatures, many of them, he says, from inside the ANC.
I'm not sure whether you'll agree with me. I think many people will share the sentiment. Boy Mamabolo, he's a fantastic and a very impressive, political populist and a firebrand. He has got a way of appealing to a particular constituency of young people, like Julius Malema, who want, freedom in their lifetime. He has been there in the ANC for many years, emerging through the ranks, of course, as the ANC Youth League. But I think the main cause could have been the new transitional leadership in the ANC could have not been able to find a common ground with Mamabolo, because you listen to him, it seems he was not happy with the way, his nomination for parliament was handled by the ANC. Remember, in the ANC, there will be a transition in terms of leadership. Every time they go for an elective conference, a totally different brand of leadership emerge. They may not relate to you the way the previous political leadership was handling you. So as a fantastic, political firebrand, I think you will have realized that, like Julius Malema left and established his own political home, why can't I do that as Mamabolo? Because they belong to the same league in terms of, youth for the revolutionary exuberance.
Yeah.
I think Malema and Mamabolo, they belong to the same leagues. And I'm not surprised because they can't find each other. Between Mamabolo and the ANC, they are failing to find each other.
Okay, I've got about
30
seconds for this last question. Apologies. It's this now front runners for provincial leadership of the party. Names like John Mbe, Premier Poppy Ramathuba, and the Mopane District Mayor Bule Shai, possibly front runners to replace Matabata. What do you see there if you throw the bones?
Yeah, I wish I was able to throw the bones on the ground and foretell what may happen. But to say to you, I think it's a parallel scenario. You have got a premier, Dr. Poppy Ramathuba, who people believe that it will be ideal for her to be the leader of the provincial government, but at the same time, the leader of the governing party, Limpopo. But at the same time, the ANC is comprised of branches, popular preference, where if most branches will prefer a totally different candidate, the likes of John Mbe, to become the provincial chairperson, it can also happen. So to me, I think it's a parallel scenario forecast. Right. John Mbe might emerge as the provincial chairperson, or Dr. Poppy Ramathuba might emerge. So I think it's too early to bet on any political horse at this point in time. But I think the probabilities are equally favorable for the two candidates.
Yeah, well, the race to that elective conference and certainly to 2026 going to be one to watch for Limpopo. Thank you so much for speaking to us, Mr. Elvis Masoga, political analyst.